Let's welcome David Terrace. Dr. Terrace is a thyroid specialist. I was going to try to say otolaryngologist. Did I do it right?
That was fantastic, but you can stick with thyroid specialist.
Yeah,
that pretty much captures it. So.
A close second was a man with a plan for your gland, but
I might have to use that one.
Okay, but seriously, an innovator, a pioneer in the field, your research, your treatment making headlines all over the world, and we appreciate the hard work that you do on behalf of people with thyroid issues.
Well, thank you, Brad. It's, I've sort of coned down what I do and sort of super specialized so I can focus on just one thing, and so it's been fun the last 10 or 15 years.
Try to slowly walk us through this. Let's just start off with a general understanding of what the thyroid is. If you Google it, it'll say that it's the engine that, for most intents and purposes, runs your body. Tell us what a thyroid does.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So it sits in the front of the neck. It's relatively small, but it controls the metabolism. So how fast our engine runs, it has effects all throughout the body. So it's a very critical organ.
All right, so what happens if that engine goes too fast or too slow? What does your body do?
Yeah, so too fast, we call that hyperthyroidism, and you will feel jittery, you'll have trouble sleeping, you'll feel like you had 8 cups of coffee, and so that's an overactive thyroid. If it's underactive, of course, the opposite. You'll put on weight, you'll feel sluggish, you'll be sleepy all the time, you'll feel cold most of the time, and so that's the underactive hypothyroid state.
All right, more Americans have thyroid issues than do diabetes or heart disease. You're talking about, at last check, some 30 million of us are dealing with thyroid problems. Other than the symptoms you just listed, or considering the symptoms you just listed, how do we know if we have it? How do you know if I'm just tired because I'm tired, or I'm tired because something's wrong with me?
Sometimes it could be difficult to sort that out, but generally a blood test will answer the question. There's 2 important ones: a thyroid stimulating hormone, we call it TSH, and then a free T4. And so those 2 blood tests will answer the question if your sluggishness, your tiredness is related to the thyroid, because sometimes it is and many times it's not. So a blood test will answer the question.
And so what happens if you find out that something is wrong with your thyroid? Is hormone-related treatment still the way to go?
Yeah, for a hypothyroid state, meaning too low.
Hypo's too low.
Hypo's too low, and so replacing that function is a relatively simple matter of a once-a-day pill. You take it early in the morning, and that will overcome that issue.
Who are we talking about here? Old people, young people, men, women?
It can happen to anybody, but generally it's women who are kind of midlife or later in life are the most prone to have hypothyroidism.
What about the treatments of radioactivity? Radioactivity, and again, I have a deeply layperson's understanding of this. Radioactivity is used to treat thyroid problems, but it also can cause them.
Well, yes, and so radioactive iodine, which is very targeted radiation, can be used to treat an overactive gland, and basically it's burning the thyroid to reduce the function of it. So that's very specific radioactivity. On an unrelated note, so exposure to radiation of various types can cause the thyroid to develop nodules, and not only nodules but cancer. So it's a little bit confusing, but we use radiation sometimes to treat thyroid conditions, but at a higher dose, radiation can cause thyroid problems.
If I've had a lot of x-rays in my life, if I've been in that MRI machine a ton, am I more likely to have thyroid problems down the road?
Probably not. It's a relatively low dose that you would be getting with, for example, dental x-rays and CT scans. But if you had a lot of CT scans, especially at a young age, that can predispose to thyroid issues. And so there's been recognition of that and an effort to reduce the number of CT scans, again, especially in kids. That's when our thyroid is most vulnerable to the effects of radiation.
Thyroid disease used to be deadly. Talk about the progress. I mean, the mortality rate used to be a lot higher than it is now. Talk about the progress that's been made in the treatment just in your career.
Well, so recognition of the disease is an important one, and identifying it early, so that always helps. And then the management, the surgical management has gotten much better, much easier, more thorough removal of the thyroid gland. But despite that, we can do it through smaller incisions and have less impact on the patient. The additional treatments that we use are radioactive iodine, once again, for the treatment of cancer. Okay, so sometimes that's an important modality that we use. And then more recently, we have additional agents that can be useful in more advanced disease when people have spread elsewhere, and there's like a new agent coming out every year. So there's other opportunities to improve our treatment of the disease.
If you take your thyroid out, though, what happens? How does your body work? You've removed the engine.
So you cannot live without a thyroid or that thyroid function. So the replacement of that function is, as we said, very simple. Once a day pill, first thing in the morning. And we're fortunate that it's widely available because that allows us to be aggressive in taking out the thyroid when it's necessary.
What about outpatient versus inpatient procedures? Have you, in recent years, seen the opportunity for folks to get treated and go home same day?
Yes, sir. And so we have been fortunate to be on kind of the front edge of that movement. And at this point, it's about something like 95 to 98% of my patients can be safely managed on an outpatient basis. And when we first started doing it, because it was new, there was some reluctance and some confusion about, hey, we can do outpatient surgery. Now my patients come in expecting it, and if for some reason we can't do it, they're disappointed. Most patients would rather recover in their own bed, eating their own food, surrounded by their loved ones, rather than in a hospital bed where it's a sort of a sterile environment, or sometimes not so sterile, especially during flu season and so forth. So this is something that is beneficial to the patient health-wise in most cases, and they prefer it.
What distinguishes someone's ability or someone's qualifications for being an inpatient versus an outpatient? Is it just the severity of the disease?
Rarely does it have anything to do with the thyroid, the extent of their disease. Mostly it's about the health of the patient. If it's a particularly elderly patient, has a lot of medical problems, heart disease and so forth, those would be patients where we may consider keeping them overnight, but the vast majority are well enough to go home.
When we continue on the Means Report, we're going to talk about the thyroid some more, especially diet, lifestyle changes, or habits you can develop that might help you stay healthier thyroid-wise. Also, if you do have to have a surgical procedure, what about scarring? What has Dr. Terrace learned on that front, and how can he help you maybe get out of surgery without too many signs that you ever had an operation? Great news on that front as the Means Report continues.